Howdy mates. Good afternoon. Here is a part 4 video today. So I'm still at the Calusa Heritage Trail, but right now I'm actually at something called a sacred site, which I will explain. So the mounds that I am facing right now is something called the Smith Mound. Now, the Calusa used to use this particular mound to bury their dead, for those who died. Now, the Calusa had a very complex spiritualism. So for them, they believed in 3 separate entities. So the first entity, the most important one, was the one who governed the heavens and was in charge of the other remaining 2. So then the second in command, falling just under the first entity, was in charge of the government of kingdoms, republics, and whatnot. So essentially they kind of acted as, well, kind of like a first mate, sort of, just as a comparison. And then the third entity, which fell under the second entity, they were mostly in charge of war and providing victory, providing that morale to the Calusa people. Now, moving on, what we're seeing is the Smith Mound. So they highly respected their elders who have passed away. Oftentimes, if they were looking for advice, they would go to this mound and seek for it. They basically treated their dead as if they were still alive. But here's the thing. So you figure back in the early 1900s, there was a family, the Smith family, came to settle here. And part of their property was where this mound is located. So an individual by the name of John Smith actually defended this mound. Were it not for him, it's quite possible that this mound would still not be here. Because John Smith knew that this had a very historical context and that it is a sacred site. So oftentimes he would have to defend this mound by basically having a rifle if anyone tried to trespass on his property. He essentially acted as a guardian. And the reason that he came to understand that was through this discovery by an individual of Frank Cushing, who was part of the Smithsonian institution. He was also one of the first individuals back in the late 1800s to really describe what was here on this land. So, noticeably, John Cushing noticed there were man-made canals built by the Calusa, so that made it easy for effective canoe transportation, connecting to the Calusa River, especially, that would eventually lead into Lake Okeechobee. And he also noted the observation of the separate mounds that we have seen so far on this trail. Now, going back to John Smith that I was talking about, think of it this way. There was like a picture that I saw a long time ago, and I thought it really spoke up to 1,000 words. It was a picture of, say you're digging up a mound, desecrating it, and destroying it. Well, think of that as an equivalent of having a bulldozer at a cemetery, right? You're destroying all the tombstones and desecrating their graves. Well, those trying to destroy this mound and tear it down for development, well, you're kind of doing the same thing in a sense. So we have a lot to thank for those two individuals who really understood its importance. So but I have to say, like, the Calusa people, I would have to say that they were actually very respectable during their time. And unfortunately, you know, as I mentioned, as it was entering into the 1700s, there were even other Native Americans who were trying to get the Calusa tribe out of here. They included the Yamasee and the Creek Indians. Actually, you know, they were in partnership with the English settlers, and they would oftentimes, you know, just forcibly remove the Calusa from here. And usually if anyone resisted, they would usually be killed. I gotta tell you, you know, humans can be quite barbaric. It's wild to me. And you have to admit, too, even when the Spaniards were making their way here, even at one point, Juan Ponce de Leon was here as well. They really did put up a good fight. But then eventually, you know, due to disease, especially that was the big culprit, they eventually, some of them left to go to Cuba or even the Keys, or some of them went to stay with the Miccosukee and the Seminoles. So, like I said, there was a book I actually read a couple of weeks ago. I actually posted it on my page. It's called An Indigenous People's History of the United States. That's written by Roxanne Ortiz Dunbar, something like that. That's a really good book, you guys. If you really want to have like a decent understanding of, you know, an indigenous perspective on how the United States really formed, that's a great one. But yeah, this is cool. And just to let you guys know too, for anyone who decides to tamper with anything on this property, it's actually a felony if you do so, or if you're caught. So it's not worth it. And why would you want to destroy something so historical and has such a great meaning? So don't do it. Just leave it alone. If it's not bothering you, don't bother it. Alright, you guys. Take care. Hope you enjoyed this video. And once again, Journey on a Journey is outwards. Take care, folks. See ya. Take care, you guys.